minute. So, and Jules is here. So, good evening, everyone. Sorry about the technical issue. We're now back. We're going to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're streaming tonight. So I'm streaming from the Bunurong and Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. For those who are able to join us, so my name is Janeca, and I'm a convener of Iskoit Iskasa Melbourne, and we're doing this for the purpose of informing everyone who's interested about gaining or regaining their dual citizenship, and also for the community to understand some myths around being a Filipino Australian. We are also joined by Jules, who's hosting our event for tonight. So Jules is a chartered structural engineer. I'm gonna just read some of his profile so we can introduce Jules as the host for this evening. He's a chartered structural engineer and a professional, a member of the Engineers Australia, and he's a consultant for energy transmission line projects across Australia and New Zealand and Southeast Asia. He works for Jacobs, a global solution provider tackling the most challenging problems in the world. And he is a SCO, or he finished his bachelor and master's degree in civil engineering in UP Diliman. He's passionate about showcasing Filipino engineering talent. And also he's founded the group Pinoy Australian Engineers. So if you're an engineer in Australia, join that group in Facebook. So they help fellow engineers achieve their full potential, and also job application and visa application. Jules is also from Surigao del Sur, and he likes says he likes the provincial way of living. So good evening, Jules. Welcome to the live stream.
Thank you, Janeca. Hi, Anthony.
Hello.
So tonight we are also joined by our Deputy Consul General. As I mentioned earlier, he's gladly welcomed us in joining us in the stream, explaining to us what the myths are and how we could better understand this process of gaining Filipino citizenship. Just a little bit of a background. Our Deputy Consul General, Honorable Anthony Mandap, is a writer, lawyer, and a career diplomat. He's got 35 years of government experience. And before he came to Melbourne, he was posted as Vice Consul and then Consul at the Philippine Consulate General in San Francisco. And then also a second secretary and consul at the Philippine Embassy in Venezuela. And before he came here, he was at in Vancouver as well. So Anton started his career as a sports and news writer at the Filipino newspaper Malaya and then at the Times Journal. He also worked at NEDA, National Economic Development Authority. He was a speechwriter and a media and PR officer. And he's also pursued law studies and then passed the bar in 1994. So he's a proud ISCO. He's done journalism and law at the UP in Diliman. And then he is married and with 3 kids. So welcome tonight, Deputy Anton. I would like to call you Anton, but with such respect, we can call you we'll let you decide what we want to call you.
Anton is perfect. Anton, just Anton. If you use honorable, that's gonna be hard to live up to. So I guess we'll be happy with Anton.
That's good. So yes, welcome po. So before we begin, I'm just going to put a structure in the live stream tonight. So what we're going to talk about is some myths of dual citizenship. So we prepared some slideshows, and we're going to ask Anton about what the real deal is about this myth, whether it's an actual myth or a fact, or there are blurry lines. So he's going to explain it to us, but also Jules will, talk a little bit more in question, Anton, in terms of what the audience thinks. And I will also moderate the comments. So if you have any comments, you can put it in the live stream on the comment of this link, and then it will come up in our screen, and we can talk about it at the end of the slideshow. So there you go. I'll hand it over to you, Jules.
Thank you, Janica. Thank you. Let me share my screen, but before I share my screen, um, so just want to let you know that our resource speaker here, I'll say probably an expert on this topic, dual citizenship. So he wrote an article about this, and he mentioned in the article it's all pros and no cons. So I'm just curious how, because to be honest, I do have some cons in my mind, but I'm also here to listen to Anton and basically discuss the myths. So I'll be sharing you the myths. Some of these are really very hard questions, and I hope Anton can answer this for us. Here you go.
Jules, before we go into that, like I suggested a while back, maybe it will be good for me to give a very brief, like one or two sentence introduction about dual citizenship, so that we'll have something to, some kind of takeoff point before we
Yeah, sure,
discuss the
Aiton.
issues.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Can I do that now?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Okay. I don't know what language you prefer me to speak in, but dual citizenship,
You
and
can
we'd
speak
like to
po in
focus on.
Taglish. Sorry, I was gonna say for everyone watching, we can converse in Taglish, or
Yes.
for whatever you're comfortable with. I
Okay.
think it's good to still speak in Tagalog whenever we can, and this is a good chance
Yes.
to speak it.
After all, we're talking about dual citizenship. So dual language din siguro.
By the way, may gusto lang akong iklaro, about to sa ano citizenship, hindi to yung about kung senior citizen ka, di ba? So ibang
Not
ibang
that kind of
ibang
dual.
dual citizenship 'yon.
Yes, not that kind
So
of dual. But very briefly, I just want to say that dual citizenship, and here we're focusing our discussion on Republic Act 9225, the Dual Citizenship Law of 2003. This law is actually a gift, considered a gift to the overseas Filipino community. So it's not supposed to be something that brings harm to you. It's supposed to be a boon and not a bane to the overseas community. It was legislated sometime in September of 2003. That's when it took effect. And it is a law that grants the right to natural born Filipinos, meaning born Filipino, to retain or reacquire their Philippine citizenship despite having been naturalized as citizens of other countries. And because it's such a good law, we have received so many applications in the tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands even, over the last few years, since 2003. So that's how attractive it is to the Filipino community. And as in the course of the discussion, I will try to show why, as Jules has mentioned, I keep saying it's all pros and no cons.
yeah, just curious. So actually, the Republic Act is actually quite new, yeah. So it's actually just 2003, just barely 2 decades. So but yeah, we will proceed with the questions, with the myths, and we'll start with the big ones, and most of these are actually the ones that we think about when we think of should I apply or should I not? Maybe not. So here's the first one. So, as they say, being dual can, limit the Australian government's ability to provide you with consular services. So, this pertains to instances like, if you're in the Philippines and suddenly there's an earthquake or whatever, tourism, they say, because you're a dual citizen and you enter the Philippines using your Philippine passport, Australian government will be, hands off with the situation. Is that true, Anton?
That's a big myth,
Can
and I'll
you
explain
explain?
why. I'll explain why. First of all, may I ask, are you aware of anyone who has dual citizenship who has experienced this problem? Probably not, because it has
No.
never happened. It will never happen. You know why? Because as a citizen of Australia, for example, you are in the Philippines, something happens, and you want to seek help from the Australian embassy. Will they turn you
Yes.
down if you can show them proof that you're an Australian citizen? They will not turn you down. You're an Australian citizen. Now, even if you have dual citizenship, if you choose to seek help from the embassy and clearly showing that you prefer to seek help from them or seek shelter with them, how will they turn you down? They will not turn you down. And as a matter of fact, they don't need to know that you're a dual citizen. If you're
Mm.
really smart about it, you will use your dual citizenship in a way that will not prejudice you. So I don't see any possibility of this happening if you can clearly, illustrate or prove to the Australian embassy that you are a citizen of their country.
Yes, yes.
There is no
Um,
reason for them to turn you down. You're a
and
citizen. Do they need to know that
there's
you're
no
a dual
such case
citizen?
before, yeah?
No, and I don't think, if you're thinking of war between the Philippines and Australia, what are the
And that may be a
chances?
case.
All right.
Yeah,
And
okay.
of course,
So
there will be occasions where there could be like a natural calamity, disaster. You seek shelter with the embassy, or there's a war that broke out. You seek shelter. Will they turn
now,
you down if you're able to show that you're an Australian citizen? I
hmm,
don't think they will turn you down. So, uh, in terms of, oh, I think this was lifted from one of the Smart Traveler official website, but I don't think even that information, so called, in that website was well thought of. It will not limit the possibility of you getting uh, consular assistance from the Australian embassy if you're able to prove that you're an Australian citizen. Remember,
hmm.
you are a dual citizen. You are not losing your Australian citizenship.
And how does it work, Anton? Like, suppose I go to the Philippines, I present myself to the customs. Should I present my Philippine passport or should I
Okay.
use my Australian
Ganito.
passport?
This is the advice. This is the advice given to us by the way, it's not the Bureau of Customs, it's the Bureau of Immigration.
Yeah,
No?
sorry, Bureau of Immigration. Yeah.
When you enter the Philippines, you show both your Australian and Philippine passports. And that way, you are recognized as a citizen of both countries. It is especially important for you to be recognized as a Filipino citizen because
Mm,
you're presenting yourself to the Philippine immigration. And so that they will not put any limits on your stay, for example, because if you present yourself as an Australian citizen only, number one, they might not even admit you into the Philippines, especially at this time. Uh,
yes.
because
Um,
visa-free privileges that Australians used to enjoy is no longer there. Pure Australians cannot travel to the Philippines,
so here you
except
go,
for
mga kababayan. It's a myth then.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a
except
myth then.
for let me just amplify that point a little bit. Except if you present yourself as a balikbayan, meaning to say
Mm.
former Filipino, then you will be allowed up to 1 year stay in the Philippines, as long as you're able to present proof of your former Philippine citizenship,
So you
right?
have
And what are
1 year
these?
to stay.
Your Philippine passport, if you kept it, even if it's expired, that is proof that you're former Filipino. Your Philippine birth certificate, if you have one, then that is proof that you're former Filipino. So you can enter the Philippines. But why did I say that it's important to present both? Nabanggit mo kanina, Jules, Australia might
Mm.
not accept you as their citizen. So it's good for you to have record of having entered the Philippines as both a citizen of the Philippines and Australia. Remember, Australia doesn't prohibit dual citizenship. Do they access our immigration records? No. So it doesn't
Mm.
really matter much, whatever
Mm.
passport used. As long as you have your Australian passport, if you need to seek help from the Australian embassy, you can always do so. And I don't see any reason why they will turn you down.
All right. Okay. So the next slide. So next, interesting question also, Anton.
Yeah.
So it's being said that dual citizens are at risk of losing their Australian citizenship. In certain circumstances. Uh, this is actually pertaining to a case of a lady. Both she is Australian and New Zealand citizen, and she was involved in some terrorism acts with ISIS, and then the Australian government cancelled her citizenship, and New Zealand was really not happy about it. So can this happen? In extreme circumstances, can this happen, Anton?
Actually, this question is non sequitur. The second part doesn't follow the first,
Mm,
because statelessness really is abhorred. It's rejected by the international community. There's no way that someone will end up being stateless. That should never happen to anyone. So if you're a dual citizen, you will end up with either, right? Dapat
mm.
in the Philippines as well, it abhors statelessness, no? So it's non sequitur. Let's tackle the first one na lang. Dual citizens are at risk of losing their Australian citizenship in certain circumstances. I don't know what circumstances they're talking about. You can lose your whatever citizenship you have. You can lose it if under the law of that country you committed something that is expatriating in nature, meaning to say it's a ground for you to lose your citizenship.
All right. All
But
right.
mere possession of two citizenship is not a ground for you
All
to be
right.
stripped of your Australian citizenship. Australia clearly and explicitly recognizes dual citizenship.
Okay, here you go then. It's a myth then. The third one, Anton, is well, they say, if I apply for dual citizenship and then in emergency situation, the Philippine Armed Forces can actually conscript me to the armed forces. Is that
No,
true?
we have no conscription law in the Philippines. We have no draft law in the Philippines.
That's
I researched this a couple of days ago. There are only 4 countries, I think, that conscript compulsorily their citizens to serve in their armed forces. The Philippines doesn't.
here you go. That's a myth then. Another one, Anton. Hold on, the slide is. Okay, I'll just state this, Anton. So they mentioned that only handful of countries recognize dual citizenship. There's a case, we know that Japan, they're really strict about this. They don't recognize dual citizenship. Can it be an issue, or can it complicate things, when you try to enter or exit these countries?
First of all, the question or the statement is factually wrong. There
Mm,
are a lot of countries that allow dual citizenship. I have counted at least 50 countries, and that's a lot. That's not a few
mm.
countries. Out of 199, if you say 50, 60, or 70, that's a lot of countries. Now, the second part, it can be an issue or can complicate entry-exit requirements for majority of countries. Let's limit our discussion on Filipino and Australian citizenship here. There is no complication in the entry or exit. You just have to follow the advice given to us by the Bureau of Immigration. Again, let me repeat, entering the Philippines, show both of your passports. Leaving the Philippines, show both of your passports. Avoid the complication when you reach Australia, itago mo na yung Philippine passport mo. It's as simple as that.
All right, here you go. The next one, if my kids, if my kids are born in Australia, then they cannot be Filipino citizens.
That's
Is
a
that a
big myth.
myth or fact?
That's a big myth. As I have written in one of the articles we published at the Philippine Times, a child of a Filipino is a Filipino wherever he or she may be born. Now you will ask, Australian yan dahil dito pinanganak si Australia. Of course she's Australian, especially if it's a child of a PR, no? permanent
Permanent
resident who's
resident. Yeah.
Australian. But it doesn't mean na hindi na Filipino. Because the laws of two different countries can coincide. And that is what is happening now to a lot of children of Filipinos born here in Australia. So what we do is we encourage them to submit a report of birth for the child, so that the child can be given a Philippine birth certificate. And after the child gets a Philippine birth certificate, he can be issued a Philippine passport. So
Right.
the second part of the sentence is totally wrong, because the
Here we
child of a
go.
Filipino is a Filipino wherever he or she may be born, because we follow the jus sanguinis principle, meaning to say you inherit your citizenship. It flows through your blood. It doesn't matter where you're born. If you're the child of a Filipino, you're Filipino.
Yes, so naka-anim na myth na tayo. How about the second one? Siguro fact na to. My parents moved to Australia after I was born. We are all Australian citizens, so I can stay in the Philippines for however long I want. Is that a fact or a myth?
My parents moved to Australia after I was born. We are all Australian citizens. I can stay in the Philippines for however long I want. It depends. We'll have to qualify this, because
Right.
some things could have happened since the time you moved to Australia. Again, we go back to what is the citizenship of your parents when you were born. So the first sentence implies that the parents are Filipino, no? So, and then they moved to Australia after the child was born, meaning to say
Yes.
the child was probably born Filipino, but it says we are all Australian citizens. So that means the family was naturalized, no, as Australian
Mm.
citizens. That means they will be deemed to have lost their Philippine citizenship, right? Because they naturalized, all right? Now,
Yes.
it is therefore not true that you can stay in the Philippines for however long you want. No, that is no longer the case, because you have lost your Philippine citizenship. And
Mm.
that is why there is value in dual citizenship. Even if you have lost your Philippine citizenship, you can regain or reacquire it if you apply for dual citizenship under RA 9225. Ergo, your Philippine citizenship is restored. And because you're a citizen of the Philippines, you can stay in the Philippines for as long as you want. You can
Right.
even retire there. You can even, and that's one of the things about dual citizenship, especially to those who would like to retire or live permanently in the Philippines.
Mm.
That is one flexibility you will have. You will never have if you don't become a dual citizen.
All right. The next one, Anton, I think this is pretty obvious. As a dual citizen, I must vote in every Philippine election. It is compulsory. I don't think
No,
so, but yeah, you can expound, Anton.
no. Well, you have no legal obligation to vote in Philippine elections. Some may argue that you probably have a moral obligation, so that
Yes.
you will have participation in the manner we choose our leaders. But no, it is not. It is not a must thing. You don't have to vote. As a matter of fact, some Filipinos living in the Philippines don't vote,
Oh.
and that nobody has gone to jail for it. It is not compulsory.
Yes.
Although
The next
I
one,
should add,
Anton.
yeah, I
Yep.
should add, Jules, no, na
Mm.
because of the political drama happening in the Philippines now,
Yes. A lot
a
of
lot of
dramas.
people
Yeah.
became very interested to vote, and that's why we had a good number of registrants for overseas voting. And a lot of
Yes.
people are now feeling that it is their duty to do so.
Yes, and I,
To,
I,
to,
I,
to,
I I believe
to
so. Yes, I believe so. It's our duty. Um,
Mhm.
the other one, Anton, is if I'm a dual citizen, then I cannot just simply run for office or take a public office. I must renounce first my citizenship. I mean, if I want to run in Australia or if want to run in Philippines, I should renounce it first. Is that a fact?
That's good, Jules. You qualified it. If you're talking about Philippine law, yes, you can run as a dual citizen, but you must renounce your Australian citizenship or your other foreign citizenship, no? If you have triple or multiple. So you have to renounce because that is provided as a condition under Republic Act 9225. Now, with regard to Australia, I don't know if I'm competent to answer for Australian law, but what I read somewhere is that dual citizenship is actually allowed for candidates here, except if you are running for a seat in the federal parliament. That is what I read. That is why it's still um, under discussion nowadays.
That's for
Uh,
Australian law, but for the Philippines, if you wanted to run like even a barangay captain, then you
yeah,
need to renounce, yeah.
that's correct because that's an elected position. Now, some
Yeah.
people will say it's a disadvantage because you'll have to renounce your Australian citizenship. Eh wala namang pumipilit sa yung tumakbo ka eh. Why will it become a disadvantage? You know,
True, true.
dual
Um,
citizenship doesn't take away anything from you. It
Anton,
will be through
it
your
caught my
contact.
attention. You mentioned
Yeah.
about actually, I'm still at the dual citizenship, but you actually mentioned about multiple citizenship. Is there a thing as multiple citizenship more than dual?
If you read the law, Jules, there's nothing in the law that says this is a dual citizenship law. It
Mm.
says Citizenship Retention and Reacquisition Act. That means to say it will apply to natural-born Filipinos who might have 2, 3, 4, 5 other
Oh,
citizenships, as long as um, after electing or after applying under RA 9225 to acquire retain Philippine citizenship, you don't
right.
acquire another citizenship after that. Dapat huli yung Philippine citizenship. So it's possible. As a matter of fact, we have a lot of applicants here who are already New Zealand citizens
Mm.
and also Australian citizens. They come to us, can I apply because it's that it's only dual. No, it's not dual citizenship. It can be many citizenships.
Yeah, here you go. May bago akong natutunan. All this time, I thought it's just dual citizen. You can actually be multiple citizen.
Well,
That's a
we
good
just stopped
example.
calling it dual citizenship law because that is the most frequent occurrence, no.
Mm.
But nothing prevents you from having 3 or 4 or 5 citizenships, as long, again, as the last oath you take is to the Philippine Republic. So that makes
All
you
right.
a citizen of the Philippines as well citizen of other countries.
The next one, Anton. Medyo controversial to. Do I need to pay PhilHealth?
This one has some basis, and I can grant that there was a regulation that required it, right? But as soon as President Duterte saw it and his attention was called to it, he suspended its application because a lot of dual citizens are up in arms. Remember, dual citizens are not supposed to be prejudiced. Now, if you require them compulsorily
Mm.
to pay premiums to PhilHealth, that is a disadvantage. This is not supposed to be a disadvantage. So the president suspended it. Maybe we'll have a new president by June next year. As long as the new president doesn't revoke the suspension by the president, I don't think it will be restored. Now, the
Mm.
other thing about this is it cannot be implemented. It cannot be implemented because how would they know how would they deduct premiums from you? They don't have your employment record in the Philippines, and they cannot compel you to disclose your employment records in the Philippines. As a matter of fact, I did some research on the origin of this requirement. I saw a press release of the PhilHealth sometime in 2017. It says,
Mm.
for interested parties, for interested dual citizens, they may contact us, blah, blah, blah. That means to say it has the character of a voluntary membership. It's not supposed to be compulsory. So,
Right.
because,
Um,
but again, they're not taking away the possibility that some might be interested in getting coverage under PhilHealth, lalo na yung mga umuwi sa Pilipinas.
pero dapat ano yun, voluntary yun, di ba? Hindi dapat siya
Yes, yes.
requirement.
Yes,
Yes.
the way it sounds in the regulation is it's like a requirement, but
Mm.
uh, the way PhilHealth conceives of it, It is not. It is voluntary. It's just something that they offer to dual citizens who might be interested in getting health coverage in the Philippines.
So
It's not
klaro yan mga
necessary.
kababayan, it's a myth. Klaro
Yeah.
yan ha. The next
It's
one, I cannot own property in the Philippines unless I reacquire my Filipino citizenship. Bagay ito sa mga yung mga nag-i-invest sa mga kondo, sa kalupaan. Is that true, Anton?
It is partly true. Partly. And it will depend on your present and past situation. If you're a former Filipino who was naturalized as an Australian citizen, you cannot own land. Again, it's only land that has ownership restrictions. You cannot own land in the Philippines more than the legal limits prescribed under special law. And what are these legal limits? For urban land, you can own up to 5,000 square meters, even if you're not a citizen of the Philippines.
That's a
Beyond
lot,
that,
5,000.
you'll have. It is a lot. It is actually a lot. It's quite sizable. Now, for rural land, the maximum is 3 hectares. Beyond which you have to be Filipino. So hindi naman talaga inaalis yung land ownership, no? The former Filipinos can still own land in the Philippines. But if
there's a
you're the
limit.
type, yes, but if you're the type who would like to invest in real property, then it's best for you to apply for dual citizenship.
All right.
Now, some people ask about condominium, no? Kasi marami sa atin mga bumibili ng condominium sa Pilipinas, di ba? Again, there is no nationality restriction except if the condominium project already exceeded 40% foreign ownership, right? Let's say 35% of the condominium project is already owned by foreign nationals. If you buy a property there, a unit there that comprises 5%, okay pa rin. But if the unit exceeds that the 40% threshold for foreign ownership, then hindi na pwede. So it's best for you to apply for dual citizenship, retain or acquire Philippine citizenship. Those are the only property limitations: land and condominium units. Everything else, you can. No, you can own property, especially movable property or personal property. You can own property in the Philippines even if you're not Filipino.
All right. Punta tayo sa tax. As a dual citizen, as a dual citizen, I need to pay the Philippine government for my income gained here in Australia. Is that true?
That's false. You have 2 layers of protection here, and it's guaranteed by no less than the authors of the dual citizenship law. You have 2 layers of protection. Number 1, we have a bilateral agreement, a treaty between Australia and the Philippines that prohibits double taxation on the same income. So you need not fear about being assessed income tax in the Philippines for your income here in Australia. The second layer of protection I was talking about is our own national tax code, the National Internal Revenue Code of the Philippines, which exempts overseas Filipinos from paying income tax on their foreign income. You may only be taxed income tax in the Philippines or income earned within the Philippines.
Yes,
so
correct.
Kung income mo sa labas, wala yan. You'll be exempt by express provision of law.
Yes.
But there are other taxes, as you know, like property tax. If you have property in the Philippines, by all means, if you have real property and there's real property tax, it's but fair and just that you pay real property tax because you own property, and that applies to all property owners in the Philippines. But if you have property, if your property is in Australia, we have no jurisdiction because our tax law, real property tax law, essentially follows the jus situs lex situs principle, maybe say where it is located. You may only be taxed where it is located.
So klaro po 'yan mga kababayan. So no double taxation.
No double
The
taxation.
next one is, as a dual citizen, I can invest in the Philippines. This includes publicly listed companies, banking institutions, and privately owned enterprise. I think this is a fact, yeah?
That is correct. As a citizen of the Philippines, there will be no more restriction on your investment or business rights in the Philippines. I keep talking about the nationalized industries, those that are limited wholly or partly to citizens of the Philippines. And what are these? You're probably aware of mass media, no? In mass media ownership, it has to be 100% Filipino owned. That's why there's talk about Rappler, there's talk about ABS-CBN,
Mm,
because mass media is required to be 100% Filipino. There are other nationalized industries like exploration of natural resources, public utilities. I think there's a 60-40 ratio for equity ownership here. But otherwise, our investment environment in the Philippines is open. It's been liberalized since 1991 under the Foreign Investment Act. There are only a very few sectors where foreign investment is restricted. But of
right.
course, you can forget about all of that. If you're a Filipino citizen, you can go into any business, any industry in the Philippines, as long as it is legal.
Yes. This one, this is applicable also not just for engineers, but different professionals like nurses, doctors. So if I'm a professional in the Philippines before I became an Australian citizen, I am no longer able to work as an engineer when I go back to the Philippines. Is that a
That's true.
fact?
That's true. As a general rule, it is true because practice of
Yari-yari pala ako nito.
profession. That's why mag-dual citizen ka na.
Yeah.
Wala namang mawawala eh. Yeah,
Oh,
that is true. And that is why dual citizenship is advantageous. Because without it, your right to practice your profession in the Philippines will not be restored. You cannot be relicensed in the Philippines if you go as is, without, applying for dual citizenship. Uh, I don't think there's any profession except doctors. With certain countries, kung meron tayong bilateral agreement, we can allow
mm,
their citizens to practice. I think there is one in medicine with the United States, but it doesn't apply broadly to all other countries. No, we have
yes.
to have a special agreement that provides for it. But otherwise, the rule again is foreigners cannot practice their profession in the Philippines. But with dual
Mm,
citizenship, you can apply for the reissuance of your license. And some people, believe it or not, are doing this because they
right.
they they, they find lucrative opportunities in the Philippines practicing profession. Especially it is one that is rare in the Philippines, where you have control of the market.
Yes. So yeah, for the members of Pinoy Australian engineers, just take note of this because this can be very handy.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was in a conversation with one of my former classmates. He set up a company and he is looking for expatriate experts in a certain field. It's high tech.
Yes.
So I'm getting some information from him what sort of jobs these are. So maybe we can offer it to those who are interested. After all, even if you become a dual citizen and practice your profession in the Philippines, it doesn't restrict you from practicing your profession here.
Yes.
So you have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's true. The next
In
one,
fact,
oh,
Jules,
yeah.
just to round it up, we used to have a program. I think we still do, called the Balik Scientist Program, whereby we offer incentives to expatriate Filipinos to share to transfer the technology, the know-how in the Philippines. There used to be that program. I think it's continuing under the DOST, but we've made it even better because you have now dual citizenship, so you don't need to worry about being treated differently in the Philippines. I'm
Yes,
Filipino pa eh.
like an alien.
Yeah, so you don't need a visa, you don't need the residency permit or whatnot. You don't need a special license to practice your profession, because you can be licensed as a regular professional in the Philippines. So it's
All
good.
right.
There are opportunities for that.
All right. So the next one, another thing, again, career. So they say, if I'm a dual citizen and then I apply for, jobs in Australia requiring security clearance, then it may actually impact my application. What can you say about this, Anton?
That there may be a basis to it, but as a general rule, um, your career options will be broadened rather than narrowed, because you will have an opportunity to work in two countries. Doesn't that
Mhm.
sound good to you?
Yes,
But
I
of
agree.
course, if you apply for jobs that require you to have some sort of clearance, if they prohibit having citizenship with another country, then that is the only area where it might narrow. But as a whole, it's quite the opposite. Your
All right.
opportunities are broadened.
The last one, Anton, before I go to Janica for some questions in the chat box. Well, this one is like a chismis going around. Sabi daw, it's too hassle. It's too hassle to, process dual citizenship. Ang dami daw hinihingi, alam, mga documents, matagal ang proseso. How true is that, Anton?
Well, some might have had some unpleasant experiences applying. We can grant that. But as far as our consulate here in Melbourne is concerned, we're trying to streamline everything. The only problem we have right now is we still don't have complete staffing. That's why
Mm,
sometimes the application takes longer than necessary. But as a rule, I made it as a rule, under normal conditions, your application should be done within a week.
here you go,
Within
1 week, mga kababayan, 1 week.
within a week.
So,
If it takes longer than that, maybe it's because of some hiccups, maybe some incomplete requirements. But that is, as a rule, we like to do it within 1 week.
1 week.
You should be able, let's say you apply on a Monday, you should be able to take your oath on Thursday or Friday. Do I
All
make
right.
that a
So,
firm commitment? Uh, it's a commitment, but I cannot guarantee it for the moment, because we still don't have complete staffing.
and Anton, with this COVID situation, do we need to be, in there physically for the oath taking, or can we do it in
Yes,
Zoom? Or
yes. Much as I would like to liberalize that part, use technology to administer the oath, our department hasn't agreed,
right?
because some of us tend to be legalistic. They want in person oath taking. But I
Mm,
argued that, pwede mo namang masiguro na as long as you're able to establish the identity and the voluntariness of the act, it should be good. As long as
all
walang
right.
nakatutok na shotgun dun sa nanunumpa na
Yes.
hindi na pinipilit, should be good. But then we're not there yet. We're still discussing that. But
Anton, just a follow-up question. Magkano ba application?
you
Magkano ba
only pay
application?
you only pay $90, 90
Just ninety
Australian dollars.
dollars for
Yeah.
dual citizenship?
Yes, and it's permanent. That's
Oh.
why I don't understand why people are
No,
still
you know what, Anton? We paid a lot with our Australian permanent resident visa, and $90 is just it's
it's a
just
pittance.
yeah. So here you go, mga kababayan. So wala ka ng talo. I agree with Anton. It's all pros, no cons, and sobrang mura lang, and then sobrang bilis. Now I'll go to Janica for some questions with some of the viewers. Janica?
Hi, magandang gabi po. Yeah, it's been a great conversation so far. We've got a few comments coming up. So we've also asked people before the live stream to send their questions. Yung mga nag-respond through our event. Here are some of the questions, Anton, and it might have already been answered. So if we missed on that, let's have a go at
Sige,
some of the
duduk lang.
questions now. So the first one is I think this was answered. Do I need to be a Filipino citizen to buy land or a business? I think it depends what you're buying.
That's right. Business, Janica, hold on.
Sorry,
Business,
yeah.
I think I also answered business, no? Yeah, okay.
I think you did, yeah, the part where it's a myth about when you what you can invest in. So
Yeah.
it's certain amount, yeah, or certain, not just the value, but the ownership control.
Yes, the percentage.
Yeah. So is there any cons of having dual citizenship?
Like I said, I don't see any, but if you're able to identify one, bring it to our attention. We'll try to sort it out because it's not supposed to give you any disadvantage.
I think if you are really running or your career path is towards running for a federal position in Australian government, then yeah, you don't have to be dual. You have to renounce it. But other than
Only for
that, yes.
federal parliament, Janica.
Federal
Federal
parliament.
parliament. That
Yeah.
is how the Australian law stands.
Yeah, that's correct. Is it true dual citizens will be required? I think this is the question that we debunked.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah.
It's at the moment. See, it's canceled or it's suspended.
It's suspended and it is impossible to implement.
Yeah, yeah. I cannot imagine how many expats would have to apply for field health and declare that they're paying for their field health. Yeah. This is about property ownership. So I have two house and lots in the Philippines. I'm a current Phil Aussie. If I renounce my Filipino citizenship, will I have the right to own those properties and someday give it to my Australian kids who were once Filipino citizens?
Well, a while back I discussed the legal limits on land ownership. No, now some are worrying that because they have more than the legal limits identified, the 3 hectares and the 5,000 square meters. Will they be stripped of their land ownership because they acquired Australian citizenship? Now, I'm not aware of any who has been stripped of his or her land ownership because of foreign citizenship. But just to be on the safe side, I encourage everyone. So you need not worry about that possibility to apply for dual citizenship. That will take care of your land ownership problems permanently.
And the next question, what will happen to my um, real properties when I become a citizen? So I think he's not yet a
I just
dual.
answered it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah.
No, but it will not be acquired by the Australian government. This is impossible.
Sorry. I did
Yeah,
not
this
get the
question.
second part.
Yeah,
I don't,
that's not true.
I don't see how that can happen, especially if it's
Yeah.
land.
Um, do all dual citizens need to vote or register? No, it's not compulsory.
No.
We've answered that. But
Yeah.
it's a privilege and it's a moral duty to vote. So if you can, go for it.
Well,
Go
my
and vote.
only regret is we were not able to enlist everyone who wanted to register because there was a time limit to it. So too bad the registration already ended last October 14th. Sayang because
Next
ang
time.
daming interesadong bumoto because of all the drama they see on TV and social media. Ang daming interesadong bumoto but
Yeah, but I think we've got senatorial elections and the future elections. So it's not, if
3
you
years from now,
didn't
yes.
make it this time, there's always the next election, and we can
That's right.
always help shape the direction of the government. This is I think family matters. Child is 3 years old, born to Australian permanent resident parents, not registered in the Philippine consulate. Can she still be registered, and is there a penalty? How much?
Wala naman talagang penalty yan. Yes, they can still register. Yung iba nga, adult na nung nire-report eh. We have a client now who is about 40 years old. Pwede pa rin naman, wala naman time limit yan. But after 1 year, there is an extra fee that you have to pay. It's not a penalty, it's just payment for an affidavit explaining why you were unable to register the child within 1 year from birth. So it's additional $45. So $45 for the report of birth, additional 45 for the affidavit. But yes, they can still be registered. I registered someone in San Francisco who was 86 years old.
Wow. It's never too
That
late.
long? It took forever. 8
As long
decades.
as you're able to show that you never lost your Philippine citizenship.
Mhm.
Merely being born in another country is not ground for you to lose your Philippine citizenship.
Good, good. That's good to know. If I have kids in Australia after applying for and receiving dual citizenship, will they still be eligible to apply for dual citizenship as well?
Uh,
Yes.
I
Huh?
have kids here in Australia after applying. Hindi na isama sa application. Oh, so that is why we encourage everyone who have children below 18 years of age to include these children so that the children can also benefit from dual citizenship. However, in this case, even if you're unable to do it, I think we have a way of retroactively um, accepting them, conferring Philippine citizenship. Just pay additional fees, I think $45 per child. We can work on the papers to include
Mhm.
them in your
Application.
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 Okay. A follow-up question: if it's over 18, what do the kids do then? They have to apply separately and produce documents that their parents were
It will depend.
Filipino
If
born.
the child himself is natural born Filipino, meaning to say born Filipino, either born in the Philippines or at the time when, or born in Australia at the time when one parent was still um,
Filipino.
uh, Filipino, then the child in his own right can apply even beyond the age of 18.
Hmm.
But if both parents are not Filipino when the child is born, and then they let the time elapse, inabot na ng 18 yung bata, wala na pag-aso. So while below 18, mag-apply na kayo, isama ninyo sa application yung bata.
Yeah. What if the kid becomes famous in the
Oo.
Philippines and they have to stay there? They become a big celebrity. So.
That is one thing that I love to talk about. Benefits of dual citizenship. It's incredible how much you can gain. We have people like Catriona Gray, Ann Curtis, and all those athletes playing in the Philippines. That is only possible because of dual citizenship.
There you go,
There you
people.
go.
If you've got a beautiful kid, no, your kids
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to
yeah.
be. No,
There's quite a lot. There are more Catriona Grays out there.
they can join pageants and
Yes.
Yeah,
become what do you call them? The like a video blogger or one of those
yeah. Or
TikTokers who are
they can play in
famous.
Villas Filipinas or Ascals.
Yeah, the football team.
Yeah, they can represent the Philippines. If they're unable to represent Australia because the competition is so tough, then they can choose to go to the Philippines and
Yeah.
try their luck there. Maybe it's easier. In the NBA, we have Jordan Clarkson, who's doing really well in the Utah Jazz. He's dual citizen.
Yeah, it's also an opportunity for adults who are born in Australia to like visit their heritage, and if they stay longer, they can appreciate the wealth of community back in the Philippines, which they won't be able to experience when they were born in Australia. It's different community spirit.
So wala nga siyang cons talaga, no? Puro
Yeah,
pros.
exactly. All right, let's move to the next
That's how I
question.
see it.
Ah, sorry. Oh, yeah. The next question is about tax rate. I think this has also been answered, Anton.
Yeah,
Tax rate.
partly. What's
It's
tax rate when I have a condo in the
condo
Philippines
in
for
the
Australian
Philippines. Yeah.
citizen? Wala naman difference tax rate. Real property tax is flat. It's uniform. Doesn't matter who owns it.
Okay. This one is about superannuation and Medicare. Um, I think No, personally, because I have super and I also have Medicare. I'm a dual citizen, so I have not thought about this, but um, I think you can access your super, but obviously you connect it to your bank account. And your Medicare, I don't think it applies because there's no reciprocal arrangement between Medicare and PhilHealth. It's a different
Well,
system.
you can answer that better than me, no? Because you know Australian law more than I do, for sure. Well,
Well, yeah, to Mr. Ralph, I'm not sure, but I can answer as a person who's had superannuation and Medicare. But I think your Medicare wouldn't. It's I don't know of any reciprocal arrangements between Philippines and Australia sa mga hospitals.
yeah,
But I think that wouldn't apply. So you would have to, use your Medicare only in Australia.
yeah. Well, if you're looking for
Yeah.
disadvantage, that could be one, ano? You might lose some of your insurance benefits. But you know what? We have a social security agreement with Australia that allows portability of your social security benefits. You can claim uh, Australian social security benefits if you have paid so much contributions in the Philippine SSS, and it goes both ways.
Ah, so
All right.
yeah, okay. We'll have to have a look at that.
Yeah,
It's a good question, by the way, Ralph.
Yeah, because
yeah,
I've not thought about that. Well, in superannuation, unless you earn income or you contribute more to it, then you can access it here. But I think the earnings would be still in Australia. You wouldn't be able to transfer it unless you withdraw it and then put it in your bank account.
yeah.
Yeah. I hope we answered your question, Ralph. Steffi, if you're already a dual citizen, yeah, I think we talked about
Yeah, I
this
think
multiple citizenship.
And that is actually a question on Australian law.
I'm not sure. I think you can.
I think you can.
Yeah. So check the immigration website. I think I have not looked into multiple citizenship. Can children? This was from Trina. Can children born to Filipinos recognize if their surname is not the same as their parents? I think
Yes.
so, isn't it, Anton? Yes, as long as there's proof of birth certificate and there's
What is important to establish always is the citizenship of either parent. If you have one parent Filipino, then you're Filipino under Philippine law. Now, surname, I grant that there could be problems because of the different naming conventions. For example, my name, Anthony Achilles Mandap. Achilles is my second first name in the Philippines. It will become my middle name here in Australia. But you'll be surprised at the divergence in other countries. It's even more curious than that.
okay.
But again, name is one thing. Citizenship is something else. If you're talking about citizenship alone, it is established the moment you're born as long as either parent is a Filipino, you're Filipino.
How soon can you apply dual citizenship after acquiring Australian citizenship?
Same day,
Whenever.
within the same hour, it can be done. I mean, if you're willing to run to the consulate after taking, a lot of people have done that, especially when I was in Canada, because they don't want to lose the opportunities, even for a minute, especially those who have business interests.
Yes.
Yeah, and while you're there, you're already in the mood to do it. Do it. So. Go into embassies. But I think if you get a citizenship, you have you have to undergo the ceremony. So which means you're gonna have to spend the afternoon in a
You'll
town
probably
hall.
not get it on the same day, but you can apply on the same day.
Yeah, You can submit the application, but then you won't
on
get it the
the,
same
on
day.
the same day. Yeah.
There's a question: how do we start the process? I think it's just published on the website. You can go
That's
Melbourne,
right.
is that PCG, Philippine Consul General, and have a look at their options and services, and it will
Yes.
show
All the
you.
requirements and procedures are there.
Yeah.
Melbourne PCG dot dfa dot gov dot ph.
Yes. Melbourne PCG at
Dot.
tfa.gov.ph.
Yes.
Or you can Google it, Melbourne PCG.
Yeah, yeah, you can find it. It's searchable now.
Yes, correct. Contributions to SSS, yes, this is what we've mentioned. Yes, you can. Um, only when you require, yeah, I think you only when you have Philippine citizenship.
No,
No? Okay.
you
Even if you're,
even if you're not Filipino, you can continue your membership. The policy of SSS is once a member, always a member.
I
Doesn't
can
matter what.
attest to that, Anton. Actually, we're still a SSS member up to now.
That's good. That's good. So you have the option. You may be entitled to certain benefits already.
Yeah.
I've got last two questions here. Does the reacquisition of Philippine citizenship is also applicable to those who are legally adopted?
Okay. I was just in a conversation with a friend about that. We treat the adopted citizens differently. If you're a minor, let's say a minor Filipino, adopted by Australian parents, of course you're given Australian citizenship. Do you lose your Philippine citizenship? Under Philippine jurisprudence, no, you don't lose your Philippine citizenship. So you don't actually need to apply for dual citizenship under this law. You can argue that you have remained a Filipino despite adoption by foreign parents. Because after all, you have no participation. You're just a child. You did not make that decision. So a child can only benefit but not be prejudiced by the decisions made by his or her parents. So
Mm.
for one thing, legally adopted foreign citizens are not admitted under this law because it applies only to those who are naturalized foreign citizens, not adopted. So there should be something for them, and I think it's correct to assume that they haven't lost their Philippine citizenship. They can be issued Philippine passports actually if they're able to prove that fact.
Okay, I hope you answered that,
Okay.
Dexter. Last two questions. I hope this is the last one because I think we need to also end the session. If a Filipino owns title land in the Philippines and thereafter acquires Australian citizenship, what would be the status of the land in his or her name that is in
Only a
excess?
lawyer can answer can ask that question. That's Kaloy.
It's a long one, huh? I can't see
Thank
the
you,
others.
Kaloy.
Hang on.
Thank you, Kaloy, for that
Yes,
question.
Kaloy.
And I have to confess that I'm not aware of any Supreme Court decision that has answered this question. As a matter of fact, I'm not aware of any Filipino who has been stripped of his land ownership because of, by virtue of acquiring foreign citizenship. Maybe if you belong in that category, you can file a case. It's a test case. So we will see how the Supreme Court handles this.
Mm, okay.
But again,
Okay.
just to be sure, we go back to what I've been saying. Mag-apply ka na lang ng dual citizenship para hindi mo na aalalahanin yun.
Yeah, correct. Um, this question is: if something happened to you in the Philippines, does the Australian government is the Australian government fully liable to help you out? Not fully liable. I think they can help you out. Yeah, it depends on the situation or the crisis. I think this is something to do with, let's say, if you get stuck,
Mhm.
I don't know, in parts of where are there a terrorist country or terrorist areas, maybe.
Yeah, as long as you did not commit an act treacherous to Australia or an act amounting to how do you call it, treasonous to Australia, I don't think they will refuse you if you're able to prove that you are one of theirs, you're their citizen.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is the last one. How can you access? I'm not sure. I have not contributed to this one. Is this a procedural question? I think.
Well, too bad we don't have an SSS office anymore. We used to have one in Filipino, so which people here can easily contact. We don't have that anymore. You'll have to contact SSS Manila directly if you have questions. Hopefully, they would decide to they assign someone here because there's quite a big market. A lot of people are still interested in continuing the membership and paying their contributions.
I think
You've been a
Anton.
member for 15 years, you probably have some benefits. You never lose.
Yeah, sorry, Anton.
Yeah, if you've been a member for 15 years, you're probably entitled to certain benefits. I'm not very conversant with SSS matters, but you may wish to inquire directly with SSS.
No,
Okay.
I was gonna say regarding SSS, you can confirm this with SSS, but from what I know, you require 10 years of membership to be a permanent member of SSS. So in this case, it's 15 years. So you should be able to access your SSS.
Yeah,
But yeah,
well,
just confirm this with the SSS.
permanent membership happens after payment of one contribution, I think. It's permanent. But again, the benefits will depend on how much you have contributed. Siguro ang makukuha ko lang, kung 1 year member ka pa lang is death or funeral benefit. You don't want to be talking about that yet.
All right.
Okay, I
All
think
right,
guys,
Janeca.
we'll have to wrap it up. I want to thank my husband, and he has a question here. If you get a dual citizenship, do you get free halo halo? We're hoping to have Jollibee soon in Australia. I hope it happens. I think everyone's waiting for this.
You can
Nipo.
throw in the inihaw na pusit or adobo pusit. He likes that.
Correct, yeah. But yeah, I think Jollibee, we're waiting for you. So yes, we will have free halo halo. Jules, anything else?
No, I just wanna thank Anton for this time and also for Janica. Because sometimes we hear this kuro kuro chismis, and
Yeah.
we need someone who's an expert to actually guide us. And it's a very good opportunity that we have Anton here. And as Anton mentioned in this article, that you can take the Filipino out of the Philippines, but you can never take the Philippines out of the Filipino. So I totally agree with that, Anton.
Di ba totoo?
Yes, totoo po. If anyone's missed this session, we will upload this on our website and also share this in our Facebook group and the Facebook page. Also, we might put together some infographic on how the myths are busted and what's fact versus myth. So stay tuned for that. Last thing is, yeah, well, thank you, Anton, for sharing your time tonight. We had some technical issues, but it's great. We were
Yeah, I
able
apologize for that. I
to.
didn't know that it was blocked. I've used StreamYard before, but at home, not here.
That's fine. It happens, and we might be able to streamline it better next time. But yeah, it's great to have you tonight. Thank you for your time. Thanks, Jules.
It's my
Thank you,
pleasure.
thank you.
See you
Thank you.
later, guys. Have a good night.
Night.